Hello there everyone, I'm Christina at CSLdesigns and today I'm going to show you how to make these beaded teardrop Kumihimo earrings. And this is what my pair looks like. So obviously just with these materials that I've chosen to use. So what we have is the main feature of a braid going all the way along, and then in the middle part of the braid we add in these beads on one side, which then creates a natural curve in it. And then we get this perfect teardrop shape for earrings. So they dangle nicely from the ear. And obviously with those bicones it really adds some sparkle in as well. So it's a pretty simple and basic technique that we're using. But if you want to learn how to, then keep watching. And these are then the materials that we're going to need. First of all, here I have my round Kumihimo disc. Now I'm using a mini round one, but it doesn't matter whether you use a normal one or a mini one. It's going to give you the exact same result. And also you can make this braid really on the square or the round one, so that doesn't matter either, whichever you have handy. And then the cord that I'm using here is a 1mm satin cord in this nice burgundy colour. Obviously you can choose whatever colour you want to. You can also use a different kind of cord, just be aware they might give you slightly different results. And the beads that I'm then using are these 4mm bicone beads. So they're just silver coated and they're faceted, so they give a lovely sparkle. But really you can use whatever kind of bead that you want to, and it doesn't have to be bicones, you could also play around with different shapes. You just have to make sure, regardless what bead you're using, that the holes in them are large enough to take one length of your cord through. And then to finish off the earrings, I'm using these ribbon ends here where we have our little loops in, so we can then attach whatever earring findings that we want to use. I'm using these earring posts and butterfly backs, but you can choose whatever you prefer. And obviously we just need some jump rings there to attach the whole thing together. Now do feel free to check out the description box below there, because I put the material list down there along with any links that you might need. But otherwise, let's get all the materials ready and let's get started. And then, as for the lengths of cord that we're going to need, what I have here is 8 lengths of about 50 centimeters each. And then towards one end of them I put them together so they're even, and I just tied a regular knot there to help hold them together, and we can then attach these to our disc. And this is then how I attach my cords to my disc. So what we have is that knot there I put down through the hole in the center of the disc, because that's where the braid is going to be coming out as well. And then I distributed the cords basically in opposite pairs all around. So I have a pair on the top and then a pair on the bottom there, and then also a pair on either side, all opposite each other, so they're evenly spread out like that. Now what I'm going to start doing is making a section of the braid with just the cord here before we add in any beads. And the structure of the braid is I'm going to start with my top right cord and then bring that over towards the left, and then put it in the slot below the two on the side. And then I'm going to take the top left cord, bring it over towards the right, and then again in the same principle in the slot below the two that's on the side already. And then I take the bottom right one, release that, bring it over towards the left again, and the bottom one now is going in the slot just above the cords on the side. And then the bottom left one goes over and up to the right side, in again the slot above the others. So now we have all the cords on the side, so obviously we need to move the ones in the middle on the side that we haven't moved yet. So I'm just going to start with one side at a time. So out of the two middle ones here, I take the top one and then bring that down, but I want to make sure I stay on the same side of the disc. So you can kind of see a line here, or imagine that you have a line if you have a different disc. Stay on that left side, so imagine you got to get back to having a pair on the bottom and the top. So this is going to be the left one out of that pair. And then I take the bottom one of those two middle ones and bring that up, and again that's going to be straight opposite from the bottom one. And then on the other side we do the same thing, so the top one of the two middle ones, we bring that down into the right one of those two middle slots, and you can see we now have the pair on the bottom. Then I take the bottom one of the two middle ones on the side and bring that up, and then we now have the top pair again. So these are already now opposite each other and back in the original setup, but the side you can see we have a gap between them. So all I'm going to do is one side at a time, literally just move each cord one slot closer together, so basically close up that gap, and then they all end up in the original setup, and this is one full round. So just to show you again, we take the top right one, bring that towards the left, so the right one goes towards the left, and because it's the top it goes below the ones on the side, and then the left one goes towards the right, because it's the top one it goes below the ones on the side on there. Then the bottom right one goes top left out of these on the side, and the bottom left one goes top right. And then we need to move the ones on the side to bring them back in the original setup. So the top one here of the two middle ones comes down, and the bottom ones of those two comes up, and then on the other side we do the same. So the top one of the two middle ones comes down and the bottom one of the two goes up. So we have the pair on the top and the pair on the bottom ready, and now we close up the gaps on the side to get those back in the original setup as well. So this is now another full round. So what we need to do now is make a length of just this braid before we then start adding in any beads. So now I kept braiding here, and what I've ended up with is a length of my braid underneath the disc, so it starts to come out like this, and then the length of this is about 4.5 centimeters long, or about 1 3/4 of an inch, because we're going to need this for one side of the earring. So now we've got to the point where we've got to make the beaded section. It's going to be the middle part of the braid. So first of all, I just want to start out the next round in the exact same way. So top right one goes to the left and top left one goes to the right. And then the bottom one's here. Right one goes to the left and the left one goes to the right. So you can see the beginning of the exact same technique. And on the left here, I'm going to take the top one of the two middle ones, bring that down. And again, just repeat the same technique, like that. But on the other side, this is where we then need to add in a bead. So the top one of the two middle ones, I'm just going to take and bring down. So we have the full pair on the bottom there. And the bottom one of those two middle ones is where I want to add my bead. So I grab the end. Now what I also recommend is, if you're using a synthetic cord like me, you can singe the end like that with a lighter. Obviously be careful because it does get hot. And then just roll it so you get a bit of a needle point there. It makes it much easier to get it through the bead. Then grab your bead there and then put that on your cord. And then push the bead all the way down. Release it from the disc, and then you want to push this bead all the way down in between those other two cords on the side, so it sits in that little corner pretty much. And then we just continue with the braid structure. So I bring the cord up, making sure that that bead is trapped underneath the cord that's going out to the side. So it's the same structure, we're just adding in one bead along the way to a specific cord. And then we want to close up the gaps on both sides. So that's now added in that one bead. So basically now we just want to continue like this. I'm now going to do a round without adding in a bead. So same braid structure. I just take the cord. Now what I kind of like to do is hold my finger on it a little bit, my thumb, to make sure the bead stays underneath that cord. But obviously if it does pop out, just push it back in before we move on. So we do another round here of the same braid structure. Now, like I said, without adding a bead in. So just complete it all the way. So on this side here, we're not adding that single bead in like we just did. Just make sure that that bead we're already adding in is staying underneath the cord, so it basically ends up on the side of the braid. Close up the gaps. Now for the next round, I do want to add in a bead. So that's just the exact same that I just showed you. So what that means is that I'm adding beads in every other round. So basically skipping around where I don't add a bead, obviously until I've added enough for how long I want the beaded section to be in the braid. Just get to the sides here and show you again. So I just did a full round with no bead. So I just close up the gap there. And then on this side, that bottom one, before I release it, I do just want to add in a bead. So again, I prepared the cord already. Should make it easier to get on. And then just push the bead all the way down as you then release the cord as well. And then make sure that, that bead goes down in between those two cords on that same side, and then bring the cord up and close up the gap. And you can always kind of lift your cords up a little bit to make sure they kind of help push that bead down. So instead of sitting underneath it or on the side, they kind of come out over the top of it. So just like that. So now we just added in another bead. So you just want to continue like this, like I said, adding in a bead on every other round while skipping one where you don't add in a bead. So now I've added in all the beads for the right spacing, and what I've ended up with is using 10 beads in total here on this one. And what I just want to show you is how it looks on the back, because what you'll find is that by adding in those beads on just the one side of the braid, it creates this natural curve to it, which obviously is going to create the final shape of the earring, which is what we want. But it just means, because the braid isn't coming straight down under the disc, we just, while we're making it, need to kind of keep pushing it out of the way to make sure obviously it doesn't get too much in the way, and then we can keep braiding here. So what I also just want to mention is the reason that we can use either a square or a round disc for this is because you probably noticed that when we're moving the cords on the disc here, they're not really traveling around like they normally do on a round Kumihimo disc. So that's why you can either use this or the square one, whichever you have handy, it doesn't matter at all. But now that we then made that middle section with the beads, we just want to continue braiding, but now without adding beads in, same braid structure, but just with the cord to basically get the equivalent to the beginning. So we need to get that length of basically the straight braid. So we need to braid until we have about the same length as that first side. So I now completed the braiding here, and I just want to show you how it looks on the back of the disc, because then we can really start to see the shape that we're going to end up with. So we have the two straight sides of the braid, then obviously that curve in the middle because of the beads, and that creates this teardrop shape, which is perfect for an earring. So now that we have that, we just need to take our braid off the disc. So I'm just going to put my fingers on the end of the braid there, release the cords, so obviously the braid doesn't come undone, unravel while we're working with it, tie a knot, and then we just got to finish off the end so we can then wear it as an earring. So to finish off the ends, we first of all need to find the right size and shape that we want here. So basically where the ends of the braids are going to be crossing over each other. So that's going to kind of be that connection point, and then we have the rest forming that teardrop shape. So it's nice and symmetrical as well as you can get it there. So what I then want to do is bring out some glue. So I'm going to be using this E6000 because it dries clear and it's nice and strong as well. And then I just apply that using a toothpick. You can kind of control it nicely. Then what I just do is I put glue around this crossover point, but also in between the two braids, just to make sure they kind of adhere together. And obviously once we go to cut the excess off, none of it is going to unravel. So I glue all that area together so it's nice and secure, and then I let it dry because I don't really want to cut anything through, risking any other braid becoming undone there. So I let it dry, and then I cut through it, and then I can attach my ribbon end onto the very end that we have left there, so it gives a nice finish. So now that I have my piece ready here, then we just need to attach the ribbon end. But what I then just want to do is just add a little bit more glue inside of that ribbon end there, just up and down the sides of it. Doesn't have to be too much because we already have glue on the ends of the braid. But just to make sure that when we put the two pieces together, they adhere nicely. So just a decent amount. And like I said, it doesn't have to be too much because obviously we need to get the ends of the braid within this and then clamp it down. So it's just going to come spilling out anyway. So I'm just going to actually take a little bit more out. It's literally just to coat the sides of it on the inside. And then I want to place this on the ends where I have basically a straight edge now anyway, because I've cut off the excess. I just want to squeeze them together because it can be a little bit chunky to get in there. So just make sure you kind of press the braids close, because obviously it is cord, so you can manipulate it and then get it nicely down. And then before I clamp anything down, I just want to make sure it's sitting straight and everything is sitting nicely. So something a bit like that, I think. Then I'm going to be using, just push that front in a little bit more, using some flat nose pliers to clamp down the actual ribbon end. So you just want to go in and start pushing this down, and again I like to do it a little bit at a time to make sure it doesn't move while we're doing it, and then obviously it becomes not straight. So you just clamp it down until it's nice and secure. And then once you've done that, again let the glue dry, then you can attach your earring findings and obviously make the second one as well. So you want to make the second braid in the exact same way, and once you go to finish it off here at the top where you overlap the braids, make sure you compare them so they become as similar as possible. So I now made both of my earrings here, so I have my finished pair, and this is what they look like. So they hang and dangle nicely from the ears with some nice movement, and obviously those beads as well, especially with the bicones, because they have that faceting, they add some lovely sparkle. Also with that movement there, they reflect nicely. Obviously you can choose whichever materials that you want to, and then also that nice texture that we get from the braid that then creates that teardrop shape, which is perfect for earrings. Now what I just want to mention is there is a slight difference to the sides of the braid. So one side here I personally like to call the front, but then we flip it over, and this I would call the back. It's slightly different. Now it's not too obvious when you're just kind of briefly looking at them, but there is just a slight difference, just so you're aware of it. so you can obviously wear them however you want to. So that's how you make these. So a pretty simple technique. It's just really adding those beads in there that makes a difference and creates this nice shape for an earring. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Feel free to check out my channel for other tutorials, especially Kumihimo ones if you're interested in that. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.